Armand's stomach growled again, but he didn't stop running. The morning sun had just begun to rise, casting a soft glow over the dusty park trail. His feet slapped the ground with each step, bare and bruised, but still fast. He counted in his head 100, 101, 102, his chest burned, his legs ached, but he pushed harder. He couldn't afford to slow down. This was the only hour of the day he felt alive. Behind the park bench, an old man sat watching. He came every morning at the same time, sipping from a chipped mug. He never said anything, just watched. Today, Armand ran faster than usual. He hadn't eaten anything in 2 days. His mother had cried quietly in the kitchen last night, holding an empty rice bag. Still, he smiled at her and said, "Don't worry, I'll be fine." She had hugged him, too tightly, like she was holding him together. As he reached the final turn, Armand's vision blurred. His legs wobbled. He tried to breathe deep, but nothing came. Then, everything went dark. When he opened his eyes, he was lying on the park bench. The old man stood above him, holding a bottle of water. "You fainted," the man said calmly. Armand blinked slowly. "I was just running." "I've seen you," the man said. "Every day, no shoes, no food, but still running." Armand sat up, embarrassed. "I'm fine, just tired." "Why do you train like this?" the man asked. Armand looked away. "Because I have to." Why, he was silent for a moment, then whispered, "Because if I stop, I'll disappear like my father did." The man looked at him quietly. He didn't ask more, just handed him a small piece of bread wrapped in a napkin. "Eat, then run tomorrow." Armand hesitated. "I can't pay. It's not for sale," the old man said, and walked away. That night, Armand returned to the tiny room he shared with his mother. The roof leaked, and the fan barely worked, but it was home. His mother looked tired. Her eyes were red, her hands cracked from scrubbing dishes at the hotel. She tried to smile. "Did you eat?" He nodded and lied. "Yes, someone gave me bread." She sighed in relief. "Good, there's no dinner tonight." Armand sat quietly on the floor, hugging his knees. "Do you think I'll ever be good enough to make it?" His mother sat beside him and put her hand on his head. "You already are. You just need the world to see it." He went to bed hungry, but hopeful. The next morning, he returned to the park. The old man was already there. This time, he said nothing, just nodded and pointed toward the trail. Armand smiled and began running. His feet hurt, but he focused on the rhythm left, right. Each step was a promise to himself. By the end of the week, Armand felt stronger. He had nothing fancy, no gear, no coach, but he had something more powerful, purpose. He ran in rain, he ran in heat. Sometimes he had no energy, but he ran anyway, because stopping meant giving up, and that wasn't an option. One day, a flyer was pinned to the park fence. It read, "Local youth race, all ages. Winner earns training spot at City Academy." Armand stared at it for a long time. He tore the paper down and ran home. "Amy," he said, showing her the flyer, "if I win this, I can finally train for real." She looked worried. "But you don't have shoes." "I'll run without them, like always." She held the flyer in her trembling hands. "You'll win. I know it." Race day came fast. The field was crowded. Dozens of boys lined up at the starting point. All wore proper running clothes. Armand stood at the edge, barefoot, wearing his old t-shirt and stitched-up shorts. People stared. Some laughed. "Who's this kid? Did he get lost? He doesn't even have shoes." But Armand didn't flinch. He focused on the ground, on the breath in his chest. He thought of his mother, of the old man's bread, of the days he ran alone when no one believed in him. The whistle blew. He took off at first. He was behind. The gravel cut into his feet, but he didn't care. One by one, he passed the others. His heart pounded. The crowd shouted. By the final stretch, he was leading. The last boy tried to sprint ahead, but Armand remembered every hungry night, every insult, every skipped meal. He dug deep and pushed harder. He crossed the finish line first. Silence, then cheers. He bent over, gasping, his feet bleeding but his eyes shining. Someone placed a ribbon around his neck. The crowd clapped, but one man stood silently at the back, wearing a black coat. He didn't clap, he didn't smile, he just wrote Armand's name in a small notebook and walked away. Armand didn't see him, but that man had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Armand's feet were sore, his legs shaking, but his heart was on fire. People patted his back, some asked his name, and a few even took pictures. He had never felt so seen. The organizers handed him a form with big letters at the top, City Academy entry. His hands trembled as he held it. A chance to train with real athletes, on real tracks, with real shoes. It felt like a dream too big for someone like him, but he didn't want to wake up. He ran home barefoot, the medal swinging around his neck. When his mother opened the door and saw it, she covered her mouth in shock. Then she hugged him tightly, crying into his shoulder. "You did it," she whispered. "You did it, Beta." He smiled. "We did it, Amy." That night, they shared the last 2 pieces of dry roti. It wasn't much, but it felt like a feast. The next morning, Armand arrived at the City Academy, clutching the entry form. The gate was huge, and the building behind it looked like something from a movie. He stepped inside slowly, afraid someone would stop him and say, "This is not for you." The reception lady looked at his form and gave him a uniform. "It's too big," Armand said. She shrugged. "You'll grow into it." Locker 14. Practice at 6 a.m. sharp. No late arrivals. Armand nodded and walked to the locker room. Inside, other boys laughed and talked loudly. They had shiny water bottles, clean sneakers, and confident voices. Armand quietly changed into the loose uniform and placed his old shirt in the locker. One of the boys stared at his feet. "Are those sandals?" "They're all I have," Armand replied quietly. Another boy smirked. "Looks like the academy's letting beggars in now." Armand felt heat rise in his face, but he said nothing. He just walked out to the track and began to stretch. The coach arrived and blew his whistle. "Welcome to real training. Out here, talent means nothing if you don't work. Got it?" The boys nodded. The coach looked at Armand. "Name Armand. You're the barefoot runner, right?" Armand nodded. "We'll see if you can run when your stomach's full." Armand didn't answer. They began drills. Armand struggled to keep up, not because of effort, but because his body was still weak. He hadn't eaten since yesterday. His vision blurred again, but he pushed through. Every time he wanted to quit, he remembered his mother's tired smile and the medal in his bag. At the end of practice, the coach handed him a schedule. Tomorrow timed sprint. Winner gets sponsored gear. Armand's heart raced. Shoes, food, water, all within reach. But as he walked back to the locker room, he noticed something. A man was sitting in the last row of the empty stands. Black, coat not clapping, just watching. The same man from the race, the same notebook in hand. Armand stopped. The man stood up and left. No words, no smile, just silence. That night, Armand asked his mother, "Did anyone ever come looking for me when I was a baby? Like a relative?" She looked surprised. "No. Why? Just saw someone strange. I feel like I've seen him before." She paused. "Maybe someone from your father's past." Armand blinked. "You never talk about him." Her hands tightened around her teacup because there's nothing to say. Armand didn't push, but the thought lingered. The next morning, he arrived early at the academy. The track was empty. He tied his sandals tighter and waited. One by one, the others came. They wore perfect shoes, ate protein bars, and laughed loudly. The coach blew his whistle. Timed sprint, 4 laps. Winner gets full gear for the month. Armand stood at the starting line, knees bent, mind focused. The whistle blew. He ran like his life depended on it. 1 lap, 2 laps. He was third, then second, by the last lap. He was neck and neck with the fastest boy in the group. The boy looked at him and sneered. "Stay in your lane, slum boy." Armand didn't answer. He just ran. He crossed the line first, then collapsed. The coach ran over, stopwatch in hand. "Fastest time this month." The boys stared in disbelief. The coach looked at Armand's feet. "How long you been training like this?" "Since I could walk," Armand said, panting. The coach handed him a bag. "Gear's yours, but tomorrow stare." Armand smiled and nodded, but behind the fence, the man in the black coat was back. This time, he spoke to the coach, just a whisper. The coach's face changed, and Armand noticed that night. When he returned home, he told his mother everything about the man, the whispers, the photos. She froze, then finally said, "If they find out who your father was, they'll never let you stay." Armand stared at her. "What do you mean?" She looked away. He wasn't just any runner. He was the fastest in the region, but someone framed him. He was banned, disgraced. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted you to make your own name, not live in his shadow." Armand sat down slowly. Everyone suddenly felt heavier. "What if they already know?" he asked. She looked at him. "Then you better run faster than the truth." He didn't sleep that night. The world he had just entered suddenly felt like it could vanish in a second. He thought about quitting, but then he remembered he had nothing to eat. He had no shoes when he started, but he never skipped a day of practice, and he wasn't about to start now. Armand stood in front of the academy mirror, staring at the new shoes in his hand. They were heavy, clean, and smelled like success. But as he looked at them, something in his chest felt strange. For the first time in his life, he owned something real, something athletes wore. He laced them up slowly, afraid the moment might disappear if he moved too fast. Around him, the other boys whispered, but none laughed anymore. They had seen him run. They had seen him win. But victory also brought attention, and not all of it felt good. The next few weeks changed everything. The academy coaches started giving him extra drills. Journalists came to watch practice. One day, a camera crew filmed him running laps. They asked questions like, "What keeps you going?" and "What's your dream?" Armand answered honestly, "I just want to run. I want to make my mother proud." It felt good. It felt like something was finally going right. But the man in the black coat never left. Sometimes Armand would spot him near the water tanks, sometimes in the stands. Once, outside the academy gate, just standing still, watching. Every time Armand tried to approach, the man would disappear before he reached him. One day, the academy held a trial meet. Top athletes from nearby schools and training centers were invited. It was Armand's biggest race yet. Everyone important would be watching, even scouts from the national team. On the morning of the race, Armand woke up early. His mother had left him a note. "Run strong today. I'm praying for you. There was a piece of warm flatbread wrapped in cloth on the table. He smiled, ate it slowly, and kissed the note before leaving. At the academy, the energy was electric. Banners waved, whistles blew, runners stretched and jogged. Armand put on his shoes and warmed up. He had only one thought: win this, and I can take care of Amy forever. The announcer called his name. He stepped up to the starting line. The stands were full. He glanced up and, as expected, saw the black coat again. But this time, the man was not alone. He was speaking to one of the academy board members. Armand shook it off and took his position. The gunshot cracked. He ran like never before. 1 lap, 2 laps, 3. He was already in the lead. On the final turn, he pushed hard, lungs burning, arms pumping. The world blurred around him. He crossed the finish line far ahead of everyone. The crowd stood. Some clapped. Others whispered. Armand looked up. Breathless and saw the board member pointing toward him, while the black coat man nodded slowly. Later that evening, as he walked back to the locker room, he was called into the coach's office. The head coach and 2 board officials were seated. One of them, Mr. Remen, folded his arms. Armand, he said, voice cool, we need to ask you something. Armand sat down quietly. Okay. Is it true your father was Junaid Rahim? Armand froze. His throat dried. I don't know. Don't lie, boy, Mr. Remen said sharply. We've spoken to someone who knows. The man who's been watching you. He used to train with your father. Armand's heart pounded. Why does it matter? Because your father ruined this academy's name, the coach added. He was caught doping before the nationals. He disgraced our colors. Armand clenched his fists. He told my mother he was framed. Doesn't matter now, Mr. Rahman replied coldly. We can't let this academy be connected to that name again. So you want me to leave? No, the coach said. But if you want to stay, you'll need to sign a statement. It says that you have no connection to Junaid Rahim, that your training and progress are only due to this academy. Armand stared at the paper in front of him. So I have to erase my blood to keep my shoes. Mr. Remen leaned forward. Think carefully. You've come far. It'd be a shame to lose it all. Armand left the room without signing. He walked to the track, sat under the floodlight, and stared at his hands. His body ached. His stomach was empty again. The metal felt heavy in his bag, but the paper felt heavier. The next morning, he didn't show up for practice. The day after, he skipped again. On the 3rd day, someone knocked at his door. It was the man in the black coat. Up close, his face was older than Armand imagined, lined with guilt, tired eyes, a scar above the brow. He didn't speak for a while, then softly said, I'm not your enemy. Armand's voice was cold. Then why have you been following me? I trained with your father. I saw what they did to him. I also saw him break. Why didn't you help him? I was afraid, the man said, but I'm not afraid anymore. I want to help you, before they do the same to you. Armand's eyes filled. He didn't abandon us, did he? The man shook his head. He was told to stay away. For your protection. Armand looked down. They want me to lie to stay here, and if you don't, they'll make sure no one gives you a chance again. Armand's hands trembled. What would you do? The man looked him in the eyes. I'd run faster than the lie. That night, Armand packed his shoes, folded the unsigned form, and wrote one sentence on the back. I don't run to hide who I am. I run to prove I belong. He left it on the coach's desk, and walked out of the academy. No medal, no guarantee, no backup plan. Only his heartbeat and the ground beneath his feet. The streets felt different now. Armand walked slowly, his bag hanging from his shoulder, his shoes tucked under his arm. The academy gates were behind him, but the weight of what happened was still heavy on his back. He had left behind everything: the uniform, the chance at sponsorship, the track that once felt like a dream. But he kept telling himself, at least I didn't leave my truth behind. He reached home late. His mother opened the door, worried. Where were you? I left the academy, he said. She didn't look shocked. She just sighed, sat down, and asked softly, why? They asked me to deny who I am, to pretend I'm not my father's son. Her eyes welled up. Then I'm proud of you. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the city buzzed with its usual noise. Inside, all was quiet except for the thoughts racing in Armand's head. He had no plan, no coach, no track, but something inside him was still burning. The next day, he returned to the old park, where it all began. The dirt trail was the same. The morning breeze still greeted him. He removed his shoes and placed them on the bench. He didn't want them today. He wanted to remember who he was before anyone gave him anything, and then he ran. Each step was loud. Each breath deep. He ran until his legs screamed, until his lungs begged him to stop. When he finally collapsed on the grass, a voice behind him said, still running? It was the man in the black coat. But this time, Armand wasn't afraid or confused. He looked up and asked, what now? The man sat beside him. Now you train. But not in their system. In ours? Ours. The man smiled slightly. Your father started a training group before he disappeared. For athletes like him, like you, kids with no name, no support, no food, just heart. Armand sat up, curious. Does it still exist? It was buried, but I've kept it alive, just waiting for someone worth the effort. Armand stood slowly. Where is it? An hour from here? The roof leaks, the ground's cracked, and we don't have sponsors, but we have belief. Armand smiled. Then it's perfect. They took a bus the next morning. The ride was long. Dust flew through the open window. When they finally arrived, Armand saw a small building near a broken field. 2 boys were doing push-ups under the sun. A girl was running laps in worn-out shoes. This is it, he asked. This is where truth grows, the man replied. Armand stepped onto the track. The surface was rough, uneven, but it felt real. He introduced himself to the others. They didn't care about his name, his background, or his story. They only asked one thing. Can you keep up? He smiled. Let's find out. The days that followed were the hardest Armand had ever lived. They trained from sunrise to sunset. No machines, no fancy food, just sandbags, old tires, and one water tap. They shared everything: meals, injuries, victories. Every night, they sat together under the stars. No one had a phone. No one was posting their progress. They trained not for followers but for survival. For pride. Armand started keeping a notebook, not for others, for himself. He wrote one line every night. Pain means I'm still moving. One evening, the man called him aside. There's a state-level open qualifier next month. No academy, names, just numbers. No one will know who you are. Armand's heart skipped. If I win, you get noticed again. But this time, on your terms. Armand nodded. Let's do it. The training got harder. Some mornings Armand could barely stand, but he never missed a session. Not once. His body changed, his mind sharpened, but something else changed to his belief. He was no longer running to escape his past. He was running to rewrite it. 3 weeks before the qualifier, he returned home for a day. His mother opened the door with wide eyes. You've changed. I've grown, he said with a smile. She touched his face. I can see your father in you now. They ate together in silence. Armand told her about the new group, the training, the upcoming race. She nodded slowly. I'll be there, no matter what. A few days later, a letter arrived at the training ground. Armand opened it. It was from the academy. A short note. You were right, but we don't forget easily. Be careful where you run next. He showed it to the man in the black coat. He read it and said, they're scared of you now. Why? Because you didn't need them to rise. The morning of the race, finally, came. The stadium was large, but less decorated. No cameras, no sponsors, just runners and silence. Armand wore his basic shirt, the one from his first race. He tied his shoes slowly. He looked around. Everyone was focused, but Armand wasn't nervous. He was ready. He stepped onto the track, took his mark, and waited for the signal. Bang! The next morning, Armand's name was on every sports blog in the region. Unknown runner wins state qualifier. One headline read, another said, from dirt to gold. The boy who came from nowhere. Some even printed his photo sweat on his brow, fire in his eyes, and no academy label on his chest. It wasn't just a win, it was a statement. Armand had beaten academy-trained athletes with nothing but his own will. Back at the old training ground, his friends cheered. They lifted him on their shoulders and chanted his name. For a moment, Armand let himself enjoy it. The boy who once ran with nothing had finally been seen. But with recognition came whispers. The next week, talent scouts called. Some offered gear. One even promised a scholarship in a private school. They all wanted him, but only if he stayed silent about where he trained. Our sponsors won't support kids from informal backgrounds, one of them said. Armand turned each offer down. I don't need your track, he told one. I already found mine. Not everyone liked that answer. One night as he left training, a man in a suit approached him outside the gate. He didn't give his name. You're making noise, the man said. I'm just running, Armand replied. People are watching now. That's dangerous, especially when you don't belong to anyone. I belong to myself. The man leaned closer. That's not how this world works. Sign with someone, or get left behind. He walked away before Armand could reply. Later that night, Armand told the man in the black coat what had happened. The old man listened quietly. Then he said, You're not the first they've tried to silence. Armand looked up. Was that what they did to my father? Worse, the man said. He spoke up about unfair selections. They crushed him for it. Armand clenched his fists. I won't be silent. Good, the man said. Then be ready, because now they'll try harder. A week later, Armand received an official letter. It was from the National Athletics Committee. He had qualified for the regional finals, the next level before nationals. The biggest race of his life so far. He smiled when he read it, but something inside him stayed cautious. The days leading to the race were tough. His training group pushed harder. The man in the black coat trained him privately, focusing on speed, form, and mental strength. Run the race before the gun, he told Armand. Win it in your mind first. But tension grew too. Reporters started digging into Armand's past. One article claimed he had lied about his background. Another accused his father again of doping, reopening old wounds. Even worse, a few anonymous profiles started attacking him online. Street rats don't belong on tracks. He's just a fluke. Watch him fall. Armand didn't respond, but he read every word. On the eve of the regional finals, Armand returned home to see his mother. She had cooked his favorite meal, rice and lentils. It was simple, but full of love. She smiled. You always come back before something big. He nodded. I just wanted to remember why I started. As they ate, there was a knock at the door. A delivery boy handed Armin a small box. No note, just a name, from an old fan. He opened it slowly. Inside was a pair of brand new professional racing shoes, high-end, worth more than 3 months of rent. His mother looked at him. Do you know who sent it? No, Armin said. But I think, ... I know why. That night, he sat on the roof, holding the shoes in his lap. He didn't wear them. He looked up at the stars and whispered, I don't need to be faster. I just need to be true. The next morning, the stadium was massive. Flags flew, people shouted, and cameras zoomed in from every angle. Armin walked in, wearing his basic white shirt and old shoes. He saw the other runners warming up in full gear. Coaches gave them pep talks. Teams stood together. Armin stood alone, until his mother appeared in the stands. Until his training friends arrived and waved from the far corner. Until the man in the black coat stood near the fence, arms crossed but eyes warm. Then Armin didn't feel alone anymore. The whistle blew. Runners moved to the start line. Armin took his mark. The gun fired. He ran. The wind pushed against him. The track was smooth, too smooth. His shoes slipped slightly on the second bend. One runner elbowed him. Another stepped in front of him. It wasn't just a race, it was a message. But Armin didn't slow down. He remembered the dirt paths, the hunger, the pain. By the final lap, he was in third place, then second. He locked eyes on the lead runner, same boy who mocked him. Last race. 20 meters left. Armin gritted his teeth. 15. At his legs felt like fire. 10. His heart beat louder than the crowd. 5. He passed him. He crossed the line. First. The crowd exploded. Armin collapsed on the ground, gasping, arms wide open. To the sky. The announcer shouted his name, but Armin wasn't listening. He was crying, not because he won, but because he stayed himself. A reporter ran to him. Armin, incredible finish. Any words? Armin looked at the camera and said quietly, I ran hungry, I ran alone, but I never ran afraid. Now I run for every kid they tried to ignore. Behind the crowd, the man in the suit watched. He said nothing, but his face said everything. Armin had just become more dangerous than they feared, because now the whole world was watching, and he still hadn't skipped a single day of practice. The victory at the regional finals made Armin a national name. News channels played his race again and again. Social media filled with praise. The boy who beat the system, one caption read. Another called him the hunger that couldn't be silenced. Strangers stopped him on the street to shake his hand. Children in his neighborhood ran barefoot, copying his moves. His story gave hope, but not everyone was clapping. A week after the win, Armin received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end said calmly, Congratulations. Now be smart, stay quiet, play nice, and enjoy the spotlight, or it ends here. He froze. Who is this? The line went dead. That night, he sat in silence, replaying the words. It wasn't just a threat, it was a warning. Someone didn't want him speaking out, someone powerful. He told the man in the black coat about it. The man nodded. I've been expecting this. Why are they so afraid? Armin asked. Because you're not just fast, he replied. You're honest. And honesty exposes everything they've buried. Armin sighed. Then let them come. I'm not running from anyone. But he had no idea what was coming next. A few days later, his mother was walking back from work when a car stopped beside her. 2 men stepped out. They said they were reporters, but their tone wasn't friendly. They asked her about Junaid Rahim, Arman's father. They asked if she still believed in him. She tried to walk away, but they blocked her. One of them leaned in and said, Tell your son to stop talking about the past. She got home shaken. When Armin saw her face, something in him snapped. I'll protect you, he said. You already do, she whispered, by staying true. The next morning, Armin posted a video online. Simple, honest, his face, his voice. He said, They want me to stay quiet, but I won't. My father was innocent. I am not ashamed of where I come from. I will keep running, not for medals, but for the truth. The video went viral. Support flooded in, but so did pressure. The sports board released a statement questioning his background. Rumors began. Fake stories were printed. One claimed he had forged documents. Another said he had failed drug tests. Completely false. Armin's head spun. He had trained so hard, stayed honest, and still, they were trying to erase him. Then the worst happened. One evening, as he returned from practice, he found his home's door wide open. Inside, everything was broken. Drawers pulled out, photo frames shattered, medals missing. His mother sat in the corner, crying. They took everything. Armin rushed to her. You okay? Did they hurt you? No, she sobbed, but they wanted to send a message. He looked around the mess. His past destroyed. His future threatened. But his fire didn't go out. It grew. The man in the black coat arrived soon after. They won't stop now, he said. You've shaken the system. Armin stood up, then let it shake. The training group gathered around him that night. Some were scared, some angry. They're going to come after all of us. One girl said. Good, Armin replied. Let them. We've got nothing to hide. That week, Armin trained harder than ever. The national qualifiers were near. If he won those, he'd go to nationals, possibly international level. But more than that, it was now a fight to protect his truth. One night, while returning late from practice, he noticed someone following him. He turned sharply. A figure stepped out of the shadows. It was the man in the suit. The same man who once warned him. He spoke quietly. Last chance. Walk away. We'll clean your name, give you money, even a place abroad. But stop talking about your father. Stop acting like a hero. Armin didn't blink. You came to the wrong boy. The man smiled, cold and cruel. No, I came to the one who hurts the most when he loses. Your mother's safety isn't guaranteed. Armin stepped closer, voice steady. She raised me with nothing, and I still outran all of you. So you do what you have to. But if anything happens to her, I'll run straight into every camera in this country and tell them everything. The man's smile faded. He walked away. Armin stood there, shaking with rage, but his heart firm. He returned home and hugged his mother tightly. No matter what they do, I'm not stopping, he said. She nodded. Then I'll stand beside you, always. The next day, something unexpected happened. An old reporter reached out. He said he had once covered Junaid Rahim's career. He had proof, old documents, lab reports, hidden files that showed the doping charges were false. The sun rose slowly over the national stadium. Its massive gates stood tall like giants, and thousands of people filled the stands. This was the moment Armin had trained for his whole life. He tied his shoes in silence, the same pair he wore. When he beat the regional finals, his mother placed her hand on his shoulder. Today you don't run alone. You run with your father's truth. With every hungry night, every tear, every broken door. Make it all worth it. He nodded, feeling her words settled deep inside. In the locker room, other athletes prepared with expensive gear and personal trainers. Armin had only his bag, his shoes, and his unshaken fire. The man in the black coat handed him a small paper. Your lane. You're number 7. Armin smiled. Lucky number. No, the man replied. It's the same number your father wore in his last race. That hit Armin hard. He closed his eyes and whispered, then I'll finish what he couldn't. 30 minutes before the race, something unexpected happened. His coach from the academy walked into the warm-up area. Armin froze. The coach walked up to him casually. You're still wearing the same old shoes. I see. Armin didn't respond. The coach leaned in. You know you're not going to win, right? The system already picked their champion. You're just here to make it look fair. Armin's jaw tightened. Then let them watch me ruin their plan. The coach chuckled. You still think heart can beat power? I think truth can beat anything, Armin said, and walked away. He didn't look back, but just before he stepped out for the race, a volunteer handed him a water bottle. From your sponsor, the man said. Armin frowned. I don't have a sponsor, but the man had already disappeared. He held the bottle for a second. Something didn't feel right. His mind flashed back to what the man in the black coat had said. Before your father's last race, someone gave him water too. He dropped the bottle. Better safe than sorry. He drank from his own one instead, and headed to the track. The stadium roared as the finalists stepped out. Cameras pointed, lights flashed. Every second felt heavy. Armin found his lane. Number 7. He looked around. All other runners had logos, sponsors, colors. He had none, but he had something they did in single quotes. Conviction. The referee raised his hand. All set. Armin bent into position. He could hear his heartbeat. Then wait. Someone shouted from the stands. Everyone turned. It was the reporter who had promised to bring the truth. He was holding a folder high in his hands. Security rushed toward him, but he yelled, I have proof. Junaid Rahim was innocent. They lied. The stadium buzzed. The referee signaled to pause the start. Officials huddled together. One of the board members stepped onto the track and whispered something to the announcer. Then the speaker came alive. We will continue the race as planned. External matters will be reviewed later. Armin took a deep breath. Of course, they wanted silence, but the truth had already broken through. This was his time. Runners set. He focused. Bang, the gun fired. He ran, not like before. This time he wasn't chasing. He was remembering. Every night he trained hungry. Every slap of poverty, every insult from the academy. Every time he wanted to give up, he turned it into speed. The world slowed. Around him he passed lane 6, then lane 4. By the final turn, he was tied with the favorite, the golden boy of the sports board. The crowd screamed. 10 meters. Armin pushed harder. 5 meters. His chest burned. 3. His vision blurred, but he didn't stop. He crossed the line and felt silence. Then noise, then confusion. He lay there, panting, unsure if he had won. Medical staff rushed in. They helped him sit up. A giant screen displayed the results. First place, lane 7 Armin. The stadium exploded. People stood. His mother cried. The man in the black coat closed his eyes in relief. But just as Armin stood to accept his medal, an official walked to him. There's a problem, he said coldly. You've been disqualified. Arman blinked. What? The water you drank before the race. It tested positive for banned substances. Arman's heart dropped. That's not possible, he whispered. I didn't drink that bottle. I threw it away. No proof, the man said. We're launching an investigation. Until then, your result is cancelled. Reporters surrounded him. Questions flew. Are you guilty? Was this planned? Is this your father's story repeating? Arman looked at the cameras. He raised his voice. I didn't cheat. They tried to make me, just like they tried with my father, and now they want to erase me too. But I'm not going anywhere. Then he turned away and walked off the track. He didn't take the medal, but he took back his name. Behind him, the stadium buzzed with questions. The truth had started to leak. And this time, Arman wouldn't run for the finish line. He'd run straight. Through the walls built to stop boys like him, Arman sat alone in the empty locker room, sweat drying on his skin, hands still trembling. The medal he had won was gone, taken by people who had never run a single lap in his shoes. But the roar of the crowd still echoed in his ears. And louder than that, the truth inside him. They had tried to take everything, but they couldn't take his soul. His name might not be printed in the results, but every person in that stadium had seen what he did. They had felt it. That night, Arman walked home quietly. The streets were mostly empty. His shoes felt heavier than ever, but he didn't take them off. When he reached his house, his mother was waiting at the door. She didn't say anything. She just opened her arms. He stepped into her hug and finally let the tears fall. They did it again, he whispered. Just like with Abu. She held his face and looked him in the eyes. But this time, people saw, and they're listening now. The next morning, Arman woke up to something unexpected. His phone was full of messages. Hundreds, then thousands. #Justice for Arman was trending. People were demanding answers. Video clips from the race were being replayed online. One clip showed Arman refusing to drink the mystery water bottle. Another showed the man in the suit speaking secretly with race officials. A third clip surfaced footage from a security camera showing someone placing the bottle near Arman. Things before the race. The truth was breaking free. News anchors now asked different questions. Was Arman framed? Is the system corrupt? And more people came forward. A former academy runner admitted he was also offered a deal to lose on purpose. A coach revealed that young athletes were silenced if they asked too many questions. A storm was building. That same evening, Arman and the man in the black coat were invited to a live interview. It wasn't a small show. It was national. Millions would watch. Before going in, Arman sat with his mother backstage. She placed something in his hand. It was a faded photograph of his father in a white jersey, holding a medal, smiling proudly. This is who you are, she whispered. No matter what they say. He walked onto the stage with his head held high. The host smiled. Arman, thank you for coming. Let's begin. The interview started with basic questions. Training, sacrifices, the hunger, the struggle. But then came the harder ones. Did you take anything before the race? No, Arman said firmly. I never cheated, and I never will. Do you believe this was planned? Yes. I believe someone didn't want me to win. I believe they wanted me to disappear like my father. Silence in the studio. Then the host asked, and now? Arman looked into the camera. Now, I fight, not just for myself, but for every boy who was told he was too poor to matter. For every girl who ran with broken shoes and still wasn't picked. For every name they tried to erase. The crowd clapped. The interview went viral. Within 24 hours. The sports board was forced to open an official investigation. The man in the suit was removed from his position. The water bottle was tested again, this time by an independent lab. The results showed something shocking. Arman's fingerprints were not even on the bottle. The ban was lifted. Arman was cleared. The board offered to return his medal, but he refused. I don't want it like this, he said. I want it on my own terms, in front of the people, not behind a closed door. So they arranged something, never done before, a second ceremony. This time, in the same stadium. The crowd doubled. Arman walked in wearing the same shirt, same shoes. No sponsors, no glitter, just heart. The announcer called his name, and this time, no one tried to stop him. He stood on the podium. He held the gold, but he didn't lift it high. He lifted the photo of his father instead. The stadium rose to its feet. Tears fell, cheers thundered. This moment wasn't just a victory, it was justice. After the ceremony, Arman didn't rest. He started a small foundation with the man in the black coat. They called it Track of Truth, a place where any child, from any street, could train. No fees, no politics, just sweat and support. Within weeks, dozens of kids joined. Some barefoot, some hungry, all full of fire. Arman trained with them every morning. He shared his story in schools. He spoke on stages, and every time someone asked, "How did you do it?" he said the same thing. I had nothing to eat, but I never skipped a day of practice. And that was the truth. Because real champions don't rise from trophies, they rise from trials. And Arman's race was far from over. It had only just begun.